on page 5 of the printouts. I shin chav ches, last paragraph on the page, and we were speaking about how netzach v'hoid can affect an amazing level, that the netzach v'hoid is, even though it's external, even though it's dealing with the lowest levels, it's a level of just perseverance. He has no feelings, he has no emotions, he has no intellect working over there. Still in all, the netzach v'hoid is able to draw down from the highest, most levels and bring about the level of Mashiach, and not only the level of Mashiach, but ונחה l'baruch Hashem on every single one, because it's a level of netzach v'hoid, it's a level of loy adamhu, and the explanation is that it has to do specifically because it is so low. It's very high shayrish, and therefore it comes from a level that has no change in it whatsoever. So now he's going to explain this whole idea of the netzach v'hoid in the avoid of a yid, and therefore it's very high shayrish. The explanation of this matter in the service of a yid today, Bishter. Sheklolos avoid b'zman hagolos, the general avoid in the time of golos. Especially in the generation at the heels of Mashiach, right before Mashiach's coming, is in the way of self-sacrifice. This itself makes it obvious the great power of the great quality of the powers that were given in the generation of the heels of Mashiach. Only specifically in this generation becomes revealed the power of self-sacrifice more than in the times of the Beis Hamikdash. Okay, that is how high we are, that this powerful level comes down. Okay, like it's known in the explanation of Pasuk V'ish Moshe Anav Ma'od, that the person Moshe was very humble. Mikol Adam Shal Pnei Adama, from every person that's on the face of the earth. This idea that we say that Moshe Rabbeinu was humble was primarily in regards to the generation of the heels of Mashiach. The Afal Pisha Moshe Rabbeinu, though Moshe Rabbeinu, top of the next page, Emes Ra, he saw the level of truth. That says that Emes Ra, he saw truth, V'nafal al panav. So in other words, he's a very high level, the level of Moshe Rabbeinu. Despite that very high level of Moshe Rabbeinu, he still had this amazing humility before our generation. Still, and all he was specifically humble in comparison to the generation of the heels of Mashiach. How come? What evoked in Moshe Rabbeinu this great humility? When he saw and this power of self-sacrifice in the generation of the heels of Mashiach, regardless of the fact that is then the generation worthy, and because of the double and quadrupled darkness in the world, there are those that are making fun and scoffing. So the world's environment is very negative in regards to Yiddishkeit. And not only the world, but the person himself. Also the person himself finds himself in a low state. That he still has not yet really dealt with his body. Hainu, this means, what's it mean, his body? We're talking about these two spiritual components of his body that we said make up the trunk of the body. He's only being able to function with the extremities, like we're soon to explain. Hainu, this means the brain and the emotions, which is the head and the trunk, are not the way it's supposed to be. And because the brain is not the way it's supposed to be, and his emotions are not the way it's supposed to be, because of that, he needs to come on to an avoida that's outside of the body. Still in all Makol Mokim, Oimid Hu Eson Shloi Lispol Meza Tainus and Minus Shiyu. Still in all he stands powerfully and strong, not to become affected by any types of complaints and responses, whatever it is. V'shum davar ein meshana oisei, nothing changes him. Milemal oisei avoida shalish Yisrael, from fulfilling the avoid of a Jewish person. Lastly, is baruch diru b'tachtonim, to make a home for the Eibshter down here below. How come? Because he has the Mesiras Nefesh, Mesiras Nefesh, out of self-sacrifice, ba'ofen the Nitzach, in the way of being both victorious, which is the level of Netzach, perseverance, v'haidah, and accepting and admitting whether or not logically he does or doesn't understand. This idea that skipping is with 1 foot and jumping is with 2 feet, indicating that we have both avoidas, the avoida of Netzach and the avoida of Hoid. It's also interesting that Rebbe brings in over here about the scoffers. In other Mamarim and other Sikhs, the Rebbe says that to a certain degree, the self-sacrifice, the Mesiras Nefesh of our generation, to withstand the scoffers is even more difficult than the self-sacrifice of giving up one's life. It's an amazing line that the Rebbe says, and the Rebbe says it a few times. So he's saying that the Mesiras Nefesh of our generation doesn't have to mean necessarily literally giving up one's life. The Mesiras Nefesh is even in withstanding those that poke fun at Yiddishkeit. Okay, second paragraph on page Shin Chav Tes. Be understood based on a physical analogy and metaphor in the soul and the limbs of a person down here below. The Yadua, it's known, the it's easier for a person to insert his foot and his heel in boiling water than to put in his head over there. So the reason that Chassidus explains is, the reason for this is, because in the head, the life force of the soul is revealed. As opposed to in the foot, the life force is concealed, and that's why, because it's concealed, that makes it more amenable to going and allowing itself to be placed into hot water. So the Rebbe is going to explain this. The explanation this is, the l'chura seemingly what's the connection? Because the vitality of the neshama is more evident in the head, that's why it's more difficult to put the head into hot water. So he explains as follows. There is where the life force of the neshama is, the nefesh is, and where it manifests. These are two separate things: location and expression and revelation. The life force of the soul is drawn down and expands in the entire body equally. Just like the soul itself, there's no division of 248 limbs and the 365 blood vessels and so on, capillary sinews. In general, in the nefesh, there's no idea of division. So too, it's also in the vitality and the life force that comes from the nefesh, that it's an entire body equally. This is the reason that every point in the body is alive, and the life is equal in the whole entire body. We don't say that the toe on the foot is any less alive than the brain that's in the head. When it comes to life, they're both equally alive, because the nefesh, the chayis and the nefesh, is equal all over. That is as far as giving life. What about the manifestation of the nefesh? This nefesh revealing its powers, its energies, its capabilities. As opposed to the inner soul powers like the intellect and emotions and so on. That in these soul powers, the koiches hapnimim, the life force and the vitality comes out in a revealed way. It manifests itself. There's a difference in the life force and vitality that comes out revealed. There's a difference in the life force that inhabits the head versus the life force that inhabits the heart. Until the life force that's in the foot and in the heel. Over there in the heel, the life force is in the ultimate concealment and covering. When the inner soul powers are revealed, they cover over on the primary life force and the innermost life force. This means the mitzad ze gufe shem begolui l'chein hem mechasem al hachayis hapnimi, because they are revealing the inner, the true life of the person, the true him. His true being is covered over by the window dressing, as it's expressed. Therefore, though he wants to immerse his head in boiling water, still know it's difficult for him, because the revealed life force, the inner soul powers, covers and conceals on the main aspect of life. I remember once hearing an expression that perhaps gives vent to this as well, that a person that has like a lot of things in life, a lot of aspects to his life, a lot of possessions and a lot of success and whatever, when all those things are taken away, so initially he like doesn't identify what am I living for. On the other hand, someone who doesn't have all this window dressing often will fight for their lives more than someone that has all of this, because they're not distracted by all the trappings and all the externalities of life. Okay, that's a side thing. So he says, so just like we see this difference in the nefesh, the manifestation conceals the essence of the nefesh, and the essence of the nefesh is revealed and express itself where the revelation of the nefesh is not so powerful, in other words, in the foot. So now the same thing in the heels of Mashiach, the feet, the times when we're dealing with the extremities, that's when you have a deeper connection. The example for this will be understood concerning the main and inner life force of a Yid. That's the idea of self-sacrifice. Like the Alter Rebbe said in his famous axiom, as a Yid nicht will nicht sein abgerissen von aller Kurs, that a Jew, neither does he want or nor is he capable of being torn away from godliness. In the head, that the life force is revealed, it affects a concealment and covering over self-sacrifice. As opposed to the foot, that the inner soul powers are concealed, and in a minor way, in a constricted way, over there it's easier to affect the idea of self-sacrifice. That's why specifically in the latter generations, top of Shin Lamed, and the heels of Mashiach, the Kishmoy Kain Hu Bechinas Akiv. It's called the heels of Mashiach because we are the level of the heel. Like the Alter Rebbe uses that same idea in Perek Beis and Tanya to say that the neshamas of our generation are called the heels because we are that level that's unfeeling and the lowest. Specifically in the heels of Mashiach, specifically in the heel on the least revealed levels of Yidden, the least revealed generation of Yidden. There's the power of Mesiras Nefesh in a revealed way. The general idea behind this is specifically the avodah from the level of Netzach v'Hoid Shem Levar Migufa, they are external to the body. Magas be'etzman nefesh, that touches and reaches the essence of the soul. Why does it reach the essence of the soul? Like we said, the midah of Netzach comes from the level that we spoke about yesterday. Kiloi adam hu lehinachem. He's not a level of an adam. And only through the level of the Netzach, which is rooted in the highest level, the level of the feet, which is rooted in the highest level, is fulfilled and comes out in an actual revelation, the making of a home for the Evishadanya Belokim Mevur Bam Shchalul Yud Shvat, like it's explained in the series of Amorim of Yud Shvat, that this is the Netzach, is what brings it down, what actually brings the victory to actually have Hashem revealed down here with Mashiach. And now the Rebbe is connecting it back to the idea of Mashiach and David HaMelech. Oizvav. The close avoided Bismana goes through the general avoid of the time of Golas. Bechinas Netzach v'hoit. Bechinas Haraglayim Shalabar Miguf, for the level of the feet that are outside of the body. Nasa inyan the medalig alahon mekapetz alagvois. So that causes to reach the level of Mashiach that we said that's one of the people that's hinted to in the pasuk, that he skips over the mountains and he jumps over the hills. Medalig beregalecha the mekapetz v'bezer glayim. He's skipping with 1 foot and jumping with 2 feet. Lifos agula mitzvah shlema de Mashiach tzedkeinu, to effect the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. Like the explanation of Medrash that we brought earlier in the Maimer, that according to one explanation of Medrash, it's going on Melech HaMashiach. So that's the connection. When we have our avodah of dealing with the feet, so we bring about the Kol Doidi, the sound of Mashiach, my beloved, coming as well. What's the connection between the two? The idea behind this is the general idea that the everlasting one of the Yidden will not lie because he's not a person. It comes in continuation to what it says beforehand. Hashem tore the kingship of the Jewish people from upon you today. He gave it to your fellow that is better than you, the Koyal David. That's going on David HaMelech. We're talking here that Hashem said what happened was that that Shaul HaMelech had transgressed Hashem's command to destroy all the sheep and all the cattle of Amalek. Came Shmuel and told him that Hashem took away the kingship from Shaul to someone else that would turn out to be David HaMelech. And Shaul HaMelech was beseeching Shmuel to intercede on his behalf that Hashem should change his mind. And he grabbed hold of Shmuel's cloak and the tore, and Shmuel said this is an indication that Hashem tore off the kingship from you. And then he said that Hashem doesn't change his mind. In other words, once he took it away from you, there's no backsies. It's over. It's finished. So we see that the whole story and the whole idea of that Kiloi Adam Hu Netzchel Yisrael Lo Yishaker, that whole pasuk was said concerning appointing David as king. Shezoi Yanavu Al Malchus based David. This is the prophecy for the kingship of the house of David, not just David HaMelech, but the whole entire line that's forever to be kings. V'hainum shegam Malchus David nimshech l'mchinas techiloi Adam Hu. Not just the mid of Netzach, but also the kingship of David comes from that level of Kiloi Adam Hu l'maylam chinas tzir Adam, beyond the whole form of Adam. Therefore, the house of David has no changes in it. It's an everlasting kingship, as opposed to all other kingships like Shaul HaMelech or like the kings of the Aseret HaShvatim of the 10 tribes. Those were not everlasting kingships, even though Nevi'im might have been involved in them and so on, but it's not everlasting. This is also what the Chazal said, that David was anointed with this horn type of thing that has the oil in it. So their malchus remains. Others that weren't with a horn, their malchus is not remaining. The fact that their kingship continued, was because they were anointed with a horn specifically. What's the significance? That the horn, or the principle of the Mashiach, was raised up. In the future redemption, it also says it will be raised up, the horns of the tzaddik, which means it's going on Hashem, and not just Hashem, and every single Yid Yisrael, because Yidden are considered the praise of Hashem. So what's it have to? So the essential thing is, why does all this have to do with a keren? What's the significance of a keren? This will be understood according to what we explained in a previous mimer of that year concerning the horn. The horn is beyond and the top of the head. The horn indicates a person, the animal's strength and power. That the horns of the malachim called chayos are equal to all the rest of the levels beneath it. It corresponds to all the levels. On the other hand, the idea of a horn also comes down the level of a total bittul. Similar to what it also says in that previous mimer of that year about a corner. A corner, if you look at a corner, it has no metzius. It's total bittul, Chassidus explains. Because a corner is not the wall that's on this side, it's not the wall that's on the other side. A corner is the meeting of the two. There's nothing substantial to a corner. So it shows on bittul. So keren is both about strength and about bittul. Move on. That the idea of a keren, the idea of a horn, the idea of this might and principle, there's also, similar to these two extremes, that's the level of netzach. On the one hand, it's external of the body. In other words, like bittul. Still reaches to the essence of the soul. Like we said before at length, the same thing over here, it reaches the highest and most powerful melucha that never changes. So now we're getting back to the original pasuk. We said earlier that that's the hoid level of atik. And how does it come down? It all comes down through hoid shabahoid. Last page, like explained to Haman of Lag Ba'omer, that hoid shabahoid has this great power to reach all the way up to hoid shabaatik. Since in the time of Golas, the avoid of Yidden are accomplished in the way of Netzach v'Hoid, like we were speaking about before, because they don't have the intellect, they don't have the emotional power, they can only serve Hashem with the extremities. Until their avoid is only Hoid Shabahoid. That's the most lowest level of admitting that you don't even understand the greatness of the mind, you just know that he's so great. Therefore, every single Yid will have what it says, that the Spirit of Hashem will rest upon him, not just Mashiach, like we say in the above mentioned Tefillah, that we say in the Rabbeinu Shalom before B'rich Shmei, it shall be fulfilled in us, in every single Yid, what it says, the pasuk shall rest upon him, the Spirit of Hashem. This means, even in the dry bones, which is an analogy for how much we are missing. We are so insubstantial. We're just dry bones. We're completely dry of any emotions and intellect and so on. Yeskel said, or the Nevuah says, that these bones are the entire house of Yisrael now. Still in all, even though they're dry bones, still in all, it will be fulfilled what it says, from all four sides will come the Spirit and will blow into these ones that were killed, and they will live. that will come down to them, these 4 levels of Ruach, the Ruach Chachma, Bina, V'Goyim, like we said earlier in the Maimer. Begula mitzvah shlema de Mashiach tzedkeinu, in the true and complete redemption through Mashiach. Kedisa b'Zohar, like it's brought down the Zohar, we had the beginning of this Maimer, the B'yom the Malch Mashiach lo yem l'chad l'chad aleph lichak masra, that in the days of the King Mashiach, a person wouldn't say to another, teach me wisdom, that a man will not teach his fellow, because they all know me from the most minor to the most greatest. The unique may taste come out of time, but then it flies like your days going on the land of Mitzrayim. I will show you wonders. Just like going out of Mitzrayim was preparation for the giving of the Torah, of the revealed part of the Torah. So too it will be in the future redemption that going out of Golus will be a preparation for the Torah of Mashiach. Then it will be the revelation of the Torah of Mashiach. Is called that Mashiach will teach Torah to the entire nation. Until the earth is filled with the knowledge of Hashem, like the waters cover the sea. The preparation for this knowledge of Hashem filling the whole world is through the spreading of the well springs outward in the last and final days of Golus. Through that we speed up and we quicken the time that Yidden will go out of Golus. They will not need to teach one another. The Arucha de Lohain, the Kolam called Ruchin Yediyah Kula, because their spirit that includes in it all the Ruchas that we said before, Ruch Eitza, Bina, and so on and so forth, knows already everything, so they don't have to teach anyone. And every single Yid will be the spirit of Hashem will rest upon him. The coming of Mashiach Tzidkeinu.